Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for our LMA Midwest Pride Spotlight. So this is a special edition of the Pride Spotlight. Today we have Roy Sexton, our LMA International President, based in Detroit, Michigan. Roy is the Director of Marketing at Clark Hill Law, puppy parent, and with a love for theater and film. He also writes reviews on films on RealRoyReviews.com, which you should check out in your spare time. Welcome, Roy, and thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for that lovely intro. It really means a lot.
Yeah, I try my best. Also, a fellow Detroiter here had to bring the mug out for you.
I know I
Um,
missed you. You were here lately, and we didn't get together, but we're gonna have to correct that the next time you're in town.
yes, yes. Next time I come back home, we definitely have to. We definitely have to have coffee, have a visit.
Sounds good.
So today's going to be just pretty conversational. Obviously, it's Pride Month. Happy Pride. Also, happy Juneteenth. I did see that you wrote that in a previous post on LinkedIn and Facebook. So it's a good month to
Yep.
celebrate diversity. And I just have, like I said, we're going to have some general questions just to go in, talk about you, talk about LMA, talk about your goals and everything, and just have, the audience get to know you a little bit more.
Sounds good. I wore my controversial Target shirt for you. It looks like I could go scoop ice cream afterwards.
Yeah, I've been watching that Target controversy, and I guess before I go into the interview, do you have a statement or you have an opinion about what's going on with the
I
Target
mean,
controversy?
I'm conflicted because I love Target. I just
Mhm.
love Target. I spend far too much money in Target, so I don't want to offend them because they provide a lot of joy.
Mhm.
Um, it's an interesting case study that I think we're going to be unpacking for a long time.
Yeah.
I have my own reservations about what they call rainbow capitalism. I mean, I grew up in an era, if you wanted a rainbow flag or the rainbow rings we used to wear, you had to go to some weird gift shop in Boys Town in Chicago to even find that stuff. So it always made me smile that Target and Kohl's and places were openly displaying those wares, and I bought because I wanted to show, look, people, you can make money off of this, because I think there is a power in capitalism associated with social messages, but it comes with
Mhm.
some risk, because is the authenticity really there? I sometimes look at the products in the Pride section at Target and giggle. They had a gender fluid mug this year. I'm like, really? So I the choices, I applaud the intent. I do think from a PR perspective, they really whiffed it, because unfortunately, they alienated everybody by taking some of those products off the shelf. It validated for people like me who might have had a cynicism about the goals for doing that. And
Yeah.
it created wind in the sails for people who thought ugliness paid off. And I fear, and maybe I'm showing my age, that as a country, we have really rewarded ugly behavior the last several years, and have empowered people to act out in ways that I don't think I've ever seen in my lifetime. The flip side of that is, now you know where the bad guys are. They're, as a gay person, you've always been a little uncertain who has your back and who doesn't, and I think that's true of anybody who is in a community that is not in the majority. So I'm equivocating a lot here because I don't know my own thoughts on it. I'm disappointed that they pulled the products. I appreciate that companies are throwing their weight behind these issues, but as I said in that note you referenced, this cannot just be about a month. The plight of our communities of color is all year long. The plight of people in the LGBT community is all year long. The plight of women in this country is all year long. People who are in older categories, ageism is a fact in this country, and I think all of it comes down to, we're human beings who deserve to live and shop and have peace, and we're not no one's doing anybody any harm by just buying their groceries and living their lives. And I think everybody needs to back the hell off and let people live and let them celebrate however they choose to celebrate. So I turned a Target message into I don't know what, but I have my feelings about it. I applaud North Face and some of the companies that have held their ground and said, look, we believe in this, because that, I think, creates a power for their marketing message, that if you're going to go into this world of embracing DEI as a differentiator, as a company, you need to mean it, because the minute you back away from it, you've lost everybody.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And it actually pivots really well into my next question, talking about authenticity and unique challenges, especially with as you stated, the ugliness that's going on right now. So, at this year's LMA conference, and as this year's president, you had a unique challenge this year of hosting the 2023 annual conference
A
in
little
Florida.
bit.
And yeah, and the state's been passing a lot of legislation against diversity, including for LGBTQ plus Americans.
Yeah.
So recently, on the last legal marketing coffee talk that you had with Laura Gassner Otting and Athena Dion, you said, and I quote this loosely, that it occurred to me that we have people in Florida who are suffering from decisions that have been made, and we have an obligation to be there and to show support, to say, look, people are seen. So we hear a lot about allyship during Pride Month, and as well as Juneteenth and other DEI initiatives. And it seems more like there's more of a clear cut strategy in terms of like government advocacy and in the people and the humanity side of this. But in your opinion, how do we bring this support to our LGBTQ plus colleagues at our law firms?
Yeah, I'm going to speak around this and get to the core of your question if you don't mind. I think it's lazy allyship when people say, I'm going to vote with my dollars. That's what we see at Target right now. The people who are against the LGBT community are voting with their dollars in their social media. Um, I was on a call, we've got these membership resource groups, and I was on the allyship call, I think it was last week, they all blur together. And somebody asked me, because I was quite upset that day about everything that was going on, crying, quite frankly. And I'm like, I don't care. This is upsetting to me. People need to see this. You want to be my ally? You need to know how I feel. And this person said, well, if I can't shop at Target, what do I do? And I said, what do you do? There are so many organizations, nonprofits, that will benefit from you. And I said this, I said, if you want to be visible and you want people to see you buying something that you wear, well, that's one strategy. But if you really want to help and you want to vote with your dollars, then give your dollars to those organizations in those areas that are hardest hit. We do this about a hurricane. Everybody's like, I'm going to give all my money. And good. I'm glad. I'm not saying that we shouldn't support people that have been through a natural disaster. But what we see happening in Florida is the same thing. And I hear people say, well, they voted for that man. No, they didn't. It's a democracy. I'm sure the people that are hardest hit did not vote for the people who are running the show right now. So we owe it to ourselves to reach out and support and help those folks, however is comfortable for you. We did, if you don't mind, we talked about this, and I'll mention it again at the conference. Going in, I had a lot of, this about the Legal Marketing Association. It's a wonderful community, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. But it's so close knit, it can be a real tough group to deal with as well. We work with demanding professionals, and it has struck me all year long how people who speak about well-being and DEI and other things can be the worst offenders when it comes to how they treat their fellow LMA leaders and members. I've seen emails that I just think, you are a proponent of taking care of others. Did you read what you wrote to me? And I'm a gay man, and there are contracts that are signed years in advance. And Florida, it's a state, any state could turn in a minute. So going in, I felt my own discomfort, but getting emails from people telling me, you need to pull out. How dare you have a conference there? You need to cancel this conference. I thought, like hell I do. We had the Freedom Riders. We had people that went down to areas of the country from other parts of the country to help. But where is that principle these days? So going into that conference and seeing these emails and thinking, hold my beer, please. I had selfishly wanted to open the conference since I had a dream about even being president with kind of a big Oscar award opening number. I'm selfish. I like to sing. I like to wear sequins. I like to make people laugh. And it's my way as an introvert, as someone who has been bullied, who feels like I'm ready to be rejected for being gay anytime I turn around. I start with the show because it helps people accept me. And it also puts a lot of other people at ease. So I wanted something like that anyway. And I said a year ago in Las Vegas, and I said that on that other show, and I'm going to repeat it here, to Lisa Kamen, who's our marvelous marketing person at LMA HQ, I want to sing Born This Way, and I want to come from the back of the house. And she's got a great dry sense of humor. And she said, are you going to arrive in an egg? I said, no. But that was before. I just wanted a statement of inclusion that was fun. And that was about the depth of it. And then I was listening to the lyrics, and there's a point about, my mother looked in the mirror and told me I could be anything I wanted to be. I'm paraphrasing. And my mom died a year and a half ago, and I have this picture I love of us where I'm a baby and she's looking in the mirror, and I can see the hope she had before her as a young woman. And I thought, those two things, that's it. I want that. Well, in the weeks leading up to this, I'm getting these emails, how dare you be in Florida? And I thought, I'm going to make a statement. Presidents aren't usually this demonstrative, but I'm going to put this out on social media. I'm going to put this out in the world. Thank you for your emails. I appreciate your input. I do appreciate that people care that much. But think about your words when you're expressing that care and who you're directing them to. And I said to Lisa, I had also said, I want a drag queen. I don't know where, I don't know why, because Miami is one of the great homes of the drag culture. And I knew it would be important, but I thought it would be more for entertainment value. Well, as things were happening in Florida and that community was being so hard hit and our communities of color were being so hard hit, I'm like, okay, this song makes sense. Me being authentic and raw and telling my truth is important. And I want Athena to come out on stage with me. And I said, Lisa, can you find out if she minds showing up at 8:30 in the morning and singing Born This Way with me? Because I know a lot of drag queens. And I thought this will be a hard sell. And Lisa was right on board with it. And she helped me with the scripting. And Athena was right on board. And even minutes before going on stage, I had the worst anxiety. I didn't know how it was going to land, how it was going to be received. And something happened the night before that's important to unpack as well. My boss was in town for the conference and so supportive of me. And we had a long conversation about my life and my coming out and how my mother had taken it. And my story publicly had always been my mom is so supportive and loving. Well, she was not those first few years. It was ugly. But the story I was going to tell was, I'm so glad I had a mother. I hope you have an advocate like this. And I realized in that moment, that's not true. There are people in the audience who went through what I went through. So I changed the script minutes before. And I said, after the song ended, because I wanted Athena to tell her story, I just didn't want it to be performative. So she did tell what it was like to be bullied, and that being bullied for who she was, she found was her superpower later in life. And I shared that, look, I had a tough time, and I wished those lyrics of the song are what I wished my mother had said to me in 2000 when I came out to her and she didn't. And that was a script change from the night before. And it was important to say that, but that my mom did come around, and we all can come around for each other. And so when we started the song from backstage, and I don't know if you picked up on this, I had a little gay fun. I included a little of Jennifer Lopez's Let's Get Loud, a little of Beyonce's Break My Soul, You Won't Break My Soul, and then a little bit of Madonna's Express Yourself, and then came on stage. And the first verse, I'm dressed in sequins head to toe. I got ruby slippers on. And of course, my friends are like, okay, there he is. And they're having a good time. And I'm like, okay, this is working. And I had a sinus infection and I feel 40 pounds overweight. I'm sweating and I'm like, I don't care. And then that second verse, when I said, ladies, I said, everyone, Athena Dion, and Athena came out. And just the response was incredible. And it was an important message for me to send to this association of inclusion. And following, hearing people say to me, I didn't want to come to Florida. I wasn't sure if I'd feel safe, but starting the event that way showed me that I could be safe. People that are in the LGBT community that aren't out, who came up to me, people from communities of color that were like, I don't feel safe here, but I did because that happened. And I think it set the tone for the rest of the event. So I'm sorry to belabor that. I like telling the story. I think it's important because I think for people saying, now to your original question, I'm like a politician. I'm going to answer the question I want and I'll get back to your question. I think for people who want to know how to help their firms, unpack what you can from that story. What are your version of sequins? What are your version of a drag queen? Be opportunistic, but altruistically so. You're in a situation, you don't know how to make the best of it. People are criticizing you left and right. Don't collapse. A good friend of mine was struggling with her firm, and I won't say who or where. They kept kind of pulling back on their pride message, and she was distraught about it. And she came to me like she was letting me down. Different firm. But they were going to post something, and they couldn't post something the year before. I said, you got them that far. You've done what you can. Build on that the next year. And in the great irony and joy, there was a comment made on that post at some point. She sent it to me where someone said, this doesn't feel authentic. And she was very upset by that. I said, no, that's gold. Because the attorneys will listen to other attorneys more than they listen to us. It's a great frustration for all of us. But use that. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to feel like they're left out. We're certainly seeing that right now in the headlines with some of the law firms and what they're learning in terms of email traffic they might have wanted to check before they left and started a new company. No, we'll not mention them either. But use that to your advantage, because sometimes the pain is the gold that you can exploit and say, we don't want to be like this, do we? Here's what we can be. And so I don't know how practical that advice is. I know that people work in challenging environments and they don't always have the grace to speak their voice the way they'd want. but try and use those opportunities, whether they're a conference in a location you didn't pick where you get to make a statement, not overly political enough, but fun and has everybody think a little differently and people are talking about it still. Or get that text post out because no one would let you do anything else, but you're changing something. You're helping people think differently for whatever reason and getting them to a place where they need to be. So
Yeah, I that's awesome. I think sometimes, trying to get that first push and that thought, especially with the DEI perspective, is difficult, especially in our industry where, we work with people who work on things based on past precedents, right? So if it's worked for X amount of years, if the law has been this for X amount of years,
yeah,
this is how I'm going to conduct my business and my statements and whatever I choose to however I choose to put myself out there because this has worked for a long time. And I think I agree with you 100%. Like it's difficult to make that change, but when you have that little change, it brings hope for the next generation or the next group or wave of
mm-hmm.
people to come, I
Yeah,
think, into your organization. And it makes people more comfortable being more loud and more expressive in terms of
yeah.
allyship.
And that's the challenge I'm not going to speak for you, but I suspect you might feel this way. I would put before those who claim and desire to be allies,
Mhm.
don't make us have that conversation by ourselves.
Yes.
You know, partly because the roles both of us have, it's harder. But if you want to claim to be an ally, I appreciate that you're wearing the button. I appreciate that you showed up for the parade, but be there for the tough stuff too. And don't make me be the one to have to educate everybody about what it means to be an LGBTQ man. Don't make Ashley be the one to educate everyone of what it means to be a woman of color in this country. Learn, listen, and then have our back and our voice and extend what we're trying to do, because that is how we will influence change.
I'm 120% agree with you. That's
We've
very
had a few
difficult.
conversations before. I know I'm kind
Yes.
of
Yeah. Yes, we have had some of these
I may be
conversations.
playing to the cheap seats on that one, but yeah, hey, listen.
It's but it's true. And and this kind of leads into the next question. Just generally, we talk about this experience, especially being diverse individuals, right? Do you say that has an impact on like your leadership style? So the question that I have is, what would you say describes your leadership style, and how do you think that has changed for you over the years?
It absolutely is a huge part of it, and not just being gay and feeling other, but being an only child and feeling other, being picked on my way to school. I've told this story a few times lately. I was an only child and I didn't understand roughhousing or play. And these other boys my mother sent me to kindergarten carrying a briefcase and wearing penny loafers. Cute kid. Did not get me any friends. And I got a lot of, for a little kid, terrifying experiences coming home from school. And my mother went to the principal, and the principal did what so many bureaucrats do. He pulled me into a room with the other boys and looked at me and said, "Roy, what are you doing to create this dynamic?" I'm 6. That sticks with me a lot as a leader. And I take some unconventional paths. I think I frustrate some people as an LMA leader because governance is crucial. I will always take it seriously. Policies and procedures are crucial. All of those are the minutia that people love to fixate on, budgets and things that are very important. That's the operations. Let it continue. My leadership style is more about who can I tap on the shoulder and reach out to and celebrate and bring as much light to other people as I possibly can, because I know what it's felt like to be left out. I know what it's like to be asked to leave the lunch table because they don't think you fit in with the rest of them. And I'm not trying to make myself the hero or Captain America or the noble white man who's saving everybody. That's not me. But I don't like bullying. I don't like ugliness. I don't like manipulation. I don't like people who are speaking past me towards somebody else to try to prove a point. I don't like that ugliness. And I will always respond pretty dramatically to it. And sometimes I do it with humor. Sometimes I do it from the stage. Sometimes I do it passively aggressively, like I am in some of these comments. And often I say to the person when the moment's happening, I don't like the way you're conducting yourself right now. And it shocks people because I'm usually laughy, happy, jokey Roy. And they're like, "What's wrong with you? Are you okay?" I love that question. No, I'm not right now. And please don't surmise that something is off with me, you're off with me, the way you're behaving, the way you're conducting yourself. So from a leadership perspective, I have tried like the Dickens this whole year to send messages that are inclusive and empowering. And people will come in my inbox and say, you as the president should do this. I go, no, I have tapped this leader on the shoulder to lead that. And they are putting the plan together and they are doing the work. And I'm coaching and supporting them because this is volunteer work. This should be fun. This is what we are doing with our spare time to develop ourselves and our careers. There's no right or wrong. There's no perfection. Do the best you can. Get the best results you have. And when you lead with that, and I'm going to sound really arrogant, you have a conference like we had that blows everybody out of the water. 1,200 people. Everybody's still talking about it. People feel loved. People feel appreciated because I didn't micromanage everybody. I had vision, but I didn't force it down people's throats. I said, here's some things I'd like to do, but here's what you could do. Here's some suggestions. And they made them their own. That's how I try to be as a leader because of what I've felt in my life. So do I ascribe that to being a gay man? Possibly. I think many of us, and I think we've had this conversation, I've had to tap dance and dip and glide and do a lot in my career when other people can just show up and say, I'm here, let me do my work. Do I do that to myself because I feel insecure from the start because of the way I have sometimes been treated in certain situations, the microaggressions? I love that term because it puts a name toward what many of us feel. I have had so many people say to me, I like what you're wearing today. Well, what was wrong with what I was wearing yesterday? And what I chose to put on is either a function of my soul, my personality, or what money I have. So maybe don't comment on that or comment on the way you like my hair today or you liked it yesterday. That feels like you're trying to put me in a box that conforms to what you expect in a professional. So I know how that feels, and I will try my damnedest forever and have in my leadership and will continue to. And I do think some of that comes from being a gay man, growing up in Indiana, feeling on the margins, feeling like I had to work harder than everybody else, get better grades, be the best little boy because I didn't want someone to reject me for being gay. But I'm also grateful for that because I think it's given me a sensitivity and an understanding for people. So I take kind of different paths, and I think sometimes that frustrates people who want me to follow that more conventional presidential way. There'll be other people who do that. That's not me. So
Yeah, I'm like, we could have this conversation literally all day, about people's expectations. And because, again, it just kind of goes back to we're in an industry that works based on past precedent. And
yep.
that has been what has been successful. So when something different happens, people are scared. Humans do not like change,
Yeah.
right? Change is very, very scary for a lot of humans. And when you see something that you're not familiar with seeing front and
Mm-hmm.
center as a leader, or, whether it's leading a project, whether it's, leading a committee, whether it's leading, the international board, such as you are, whether it's leading an organization as in the C-suite,
Yeah.
it's scary for a lot of people.
What's interesting about that, though, to me is what do we define as change?
Mm-hmm.
Because me being different or asking for my own space that I deserve is not a change that really impacts anybody else.
Mm-mm.
I understand resistance to change. We just went through this exercise. You can see I like comical phones. We kept a landline until 2 days ago. And finally, my husband said, do we really need this landline? That's change I didn't want to make because I still liked having the phone ring and I liked having it on the wall. But that's different. That's change that we resist because we're used to doing something a certain way. But me being myself or asking for just the basic respect and rights, that's not a change anybody else has to adjust to. That just means let me breathe. And that's where I struggle sometimes because I know what you're saying and I'm not being argumentative, but I think that's where we need to stake our claim and say this change I'm asking for really is no, it's not asking that much of you to
Right.
let me have a voice, to let me have space, to let me wear what I want to wear, to let me speak as I want. I also get a lot of, Roy, you ramble. Could you keep focused? Could you really prepare your remarks? No, this is how I speak. I speak in parentheticals. And if you want me, let me, Ashley, this is a gift for me because I'm sure you're like, good Lord, how am I going to rein him in? I don't get many opportunities just to speak about how I'm feeling. I always have to be prepared and structured and I'm facilitating a board meeting and wondering who's going to react to something that I don't anticipate, or who's going to later down the line go, what did you mean you decided that? I wasn't there for that conversation. Well, you're not on the board. I'm sorry. So I have to be very measured and thoughtful, more than people give me credit for. I don't get a lot of chances just to talk. And when I do, I hear people say, oh, could you turn it down a little bit? Could you?
Mm.
No. Could you just listen? Why do I have to turn it down for you? So that's where I feel like that's a change that people are there. It's a change we're asking of them, and somehow it becomes a change I still have to make. And that makes me nuts. Clearly, I'm on a bit of a soapbox.
No, it's some I listen. We're on the same page, so you have no arguments for me here. I've had very
Kate,
similar.
Kate Shipham tapped both of us on the shoulders. I don't know if this is what you wanted.
Sorry,
This is what you're
Kate.
getting. This might go in the vault and never see the light of day. I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, I it's funny because I've been having this conversation just recently and like where I'm at in my career. I'm at the manager level now, which has
Yeah,
been really an interesting journey. And it's the
yeah,
same thing. It's embracing who I am as a leader, just generally, right? Because when you're a coordinator, specialist, senior specialist, you do what's expected of you. You're like, here are my I've learned this recently about myself. Our team has just taken a predictive index like team thing. So
oh
they
yeah.
gave us our
Mhm.
personality tests back and I'm like, okay. Mine's really I'm a very stable person who loves the process and I love to have things on paper and things to follow that are measured. And I think I spent a lot of my career being that measured person. Well, here's the expectation. Ashley, how are you measuring up to expectation? If I could put it down on paper and like we say, if I have my receipts to show you that I've done what I said that I'm supposed to do and it's here on paper, I've got an email tracking on you, I've got notes, I've got recordings. What else do you want from me? I have it.
Yeah.
It's funny that the expectations shift because of who I am and how I present. And after, being more in LMA and being in leadership, I have found my confidence along the way because of people like you, Roy, who are not afraid to be themselves. And I'm like, well, you're just going to get Ashley 100%. This is who I am. This is the way that I speak. This is the sound of my voice. This is the tone of my dialect. This
Yep.
is the timbre that you're going to get out of me. I want to be authentically myself. And what I find is, I guess, in the journey, is that the more that you start to be comfortable with you and you build this self-confidence with being comfortable with you, people get people are afraid. And they're like, well, you're not that person who was measured, that was like checking those boxes, that was looking on that paper. Why are you being so different?
But that's not where I thought you were going to go.
Mm-hmm.
I I will give you this old man advice. Those people will fall away, and the people you will be left with are the people you really needed and wanted all along. Because the
Mm-hmm.
people who are not comfortable with the change you're making for yourself are because they were viewing you transactionally. They wanted
Mm-hmm.
you to do what they wanted you to do. And I'm having my own struggle with that this year. It has been a wonderful experience being president, wonderful exposure, wonderful opportunity for conversations like this, wonderful opportunity for me to share my crazy. But it's also been a wonderful place for me to say, I don't need that from certain people anymore. And let the chips fall where they may. I will be fine, and you will
Mm-hmm.
be fine. And I want to ask you a question, and I hope this lands well, but I have a curiosity about this because I feel about this myself. I'm not nearly the process person you are, but the keep your receipts thing, I have been that myself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that was naturally you all along, or was that something you developed as a person of color in this country because you knew you needed to keep your receipts in a way that other people don't necessarily have to at the table?
Yes, it's it's the latter.
Yep.
Um, and I don't share much of my story growing up, but I had been bullied, ironically, by other adults growing up, my entire life. And it was something that I had to learn to do at a very young age was always keep your notes,
Yep.
always document, always document. I've had really bad work experiences in the past where I've been harassed. I've always had to make sure, keep the
Yep.
emails, keep the conversations, document the times, document when this happened, who was in the room.
Yep.
Um, and I have a very personal story. I'm divorced. This had come up in my divorce where I had to, do this, where I had to make sure I had my receipts and keep things documented, in terms of trying to get my divorce. And it helped me. it helped me, but a lot of people just didn't believe me.
Yep.
It was, it's always, you're not telling the truth. Why am
Yep.
I not telling the truth? Why am I not capable of
Yeah.
telling the truth? Is it
Mm-hmm.
because of how I present, right?
Yep.
So I had to learn how to do that. And it served me well in my career because
Yes.
that's probably why I have become this process stable oriented person,
Same.
because I'm like, I've always had to put things down on paper and I've always had to make
Yep.
sure I can dictate it
Yeah.
back. But, and it
And
also goes
my
into my,
version of that is I always have to, I'm not as organized as you, but I want to be the first to respond. I want to be the responsive one. I want to, and
mm-hmm,
I don't mean to interrupt your flow, but
yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard Ginger Rogers say this. People go on about Fred Astaire, what a wonderful dancer. Wasn't it a gift to dance with him? And she would say, yeah, I had to do everything he did backwards and in high heels.
Mm-hmm,
And I don't think people appreciate that people like us have different versions of dancing backwards and in high heels
yeah.
all the damn time. And it's exhausting.
Yes. It is exhausting. But I think that you come out as a better
Yep.
practitioner and a better
Yep.
leader
Yep.
because of it.
Yep.
Um, so we're gonna steer it back on topic
Yes.
now. I know, like
Right.
we went totally off, but I mean, no, this is a very good conversation. But
But
you
your last point is, and I don't want to, because I feel like I'm being a bit toxic in this conversation. I don't mean to.
know,
I absolutely believe that stress makes diamonds, and I
no.
wish I didn't have to live through the stress I've lived through. But I am many things can be true at the same time. I wish I'd
Mhm.
had a life where I could just be at ease and be an actor and read comic books and write, but I need to eat and have a roof over my head. So
Mhm.
learning to play the games and learning to have skills that were foreign to me, I am grateful for that. I am resentful of it and I am grateful of it at the same time. And I do think it's made me a better professional. It's made me more, sometimes, and I'm going to contradict myself, sometimes knowing how to wear the suit people expect me to wear gets
Mhm.
me in the room. And then when I'm in the room, the sequins are coming out. And I don't
Yeah.
want that to sound as manipulative as it does, but it's like, fine, I can do this. Watch me. I can dance backwards and in high heels.
Mhm.
But now that I've done that, I want you to meet me where I am. And I'm glad that I've had the skills and the experiences that have allowed me to get to that point. So, okay,
Yeah.
back to your regularly scheduled questions. This is going to be three
So
hours long. Rob's
no.
like, what did I sign up for? Rob Cates, thank you for helping us produce this, by the way.
Thank you so much, Rob. Like, we love you, Rob.
We
Honestly,
do.
you're
He
the
is,
best.
talk about an ally. Talk about somebody who is there for all of us, has been there consistently. He has been there for me up and down. At a low point, honestly, my husband has MS and a compromised immune system. We were completely shut in. And he said, Roy, do you want to help host Legal Marketing Coffee Talk? He doesn't know this, but that saved me from a creative
Mm-hmm.
perspective, gave me an outlet. When my mom died, he was there first with a video because he let
Mm-hmm.
me call her every time we did a show and let her on. And he's just, that's what allyship looks like. He doesn't make a pretense of it. He just is there. So,
That's
okay.
amazing.
What's your question?
All right. So since we're talking about allies and the sense of community, so I was listening around doing my research. There's some excerpts that I listened to from Jessica Horowitz and Robin Addis of Lisi. And they
Uh-oh.
spoke about the energy of the conference. And they said, like, I'll never forget how powerful and impactful and beautiful that moment was in reference to the inclusivity that was felt by the community. And as someone who was there, I felt the exact same way. It was a really wonderful atmosphere to be a part of. I still talk about the conference, like we all talk about, people are still talking about it. I'm one of those people, like, can I just go
Thank you.
back? That was a great three
Thank you.
days.
That means the world. That's what I'd hoped. That's what I hoped.
It
We all
was
hoped. Our
it was
co-chairs, Lee
great.
Watts, Jen Dizo, Megan McKeon. It wasn't just the Roy show. We were, our staff, our ACAC, we all were aligned. It was the planning of it, the development. It was been one of the most positive and affirming and rewarding professional experiences of my life working on that conference. So the fact that it meant that much to people, I know that means the world to all of us that were part of it. So
Yeah, it was amazing. So my question for that is, in your opinion, um, like how can we as LMA members keep this energy of inclusivity going post conference and in our day to day lives?
I think in ways big and small. I think one of the ways people did it already is signal boosting the conversation, still talking about it. my message, I talked about dance remixes. I love dance remixes. I love when someone takes a slow Adele song and turns it into this raging, thumping kind of, I'm like, how do you do that? So I'm a big fan of, and it's my theater side too. I don't worry about legacy. I don't worry about possessiveness or I did this now. Everybody on. I'm like, take of it now, break it up. Take your portions of it that meant something to you and carry that forward. If it's as simple as posting that picture of you with Athena on LinkedIn, which a lot of people did. By the way, I've said this a couple times. Athena and Laura and I now have this texting relationship that is life. And I sent a few to Athena. I said, you're all over LinkedIn, right? And she said, my mother's always wanted me on LinkedIn. So those might seem like small things, but the representation of seeing a conventionally dressed business person at a conference standing by this beautiful 8-foot drag queen, that makes a difference. If you're planning a fall conference and the regions are and they're doing a wonderful job and I see the themes, they're their own themes. The branding is different. I don't care. I'm a terrible marketer because I'm not branding. I'm like, that looks cool. What's not in our brand? I'm like, oh, fine. They're doing their own thing, but I see their themes of community and amplification and celebrating one another. They're woven throughout all of these conference offerings I'm seeing come forth in the fall. They're doing that on their own. Were they inspired by some of what we're doing? I don't know. I hope so. But I know that just the influence we had in that experience, to your point, you want to go back there and relive it again. So when you have that urge, relive that for somebody else who wasn't there. Tell them about it. Create a comparable experience that has that same sensitivity to not everybody in the room. Arash Darudi was on our GC panel, and I think he or Peter Nguyen said, don't take me to a football game. Not everybody likes to go to a football game. So if you're planning an activity, plan an activity that you think will mean something to other people that may be an expression of yourself, but isn't something you wanted to do and you're inviting everybody to it. I think that alone, that mindset of shifting, and I hear leaders do this, my board, my region, my conference. No my's. We, ours, us. Change your language. You're just a steward for the year. Someone else will pick up after you. So exemplify that you're doing this for other people. You're creating a safe space for other people to be part of. So in the LMA sphere, I've rambled, but I'd say it can be small. It can be do that social media post, share that content that you're like, this sends a message of inclusion. Keep that going. Also, a big part of it was amplification, that people who are in these jobs are seen by their community and celebrated for what they're doing. So if there's a young person, I got a couple folks that are doing great work in social media. One of them came forth and said, should I apply to the Midwest Region Conference? I said, do it. And if you don't get picked, it doesn't matter. You got a chance. And I'm helping her with, kind of looking at what she's writing. But take those people. I've had my time. I'm now trying to lean into letting other people do this. I don't want to be president of anything ever again after this year. I'm not going to be one of those people. It's like, now I'm the president of this and I'm doing that. I'm taking a break. Let other people be the presidents. Let other people be the leaders and be there for them to share your experience, and then let them take it to that next level. And don't be jealous that they're doing something different or better. Or that's great. That's what we want. We want the dance remix. We want the next level and keep changing and evolving. I'm a big fan of Disney. I'm glad they've kind of come around because they've got a problematic history, but Walt Disney always said Disney World is never finished. Disneyland is never finished. We're going to keep changing and keep doing, and I think that's a good thing. So, for me, the DNA of the conference, the specifics were inclusion, well-being, amplifying others. The DNA of it was be there and open for everybody to feel like they have a space in what you're creating, whatever that looks like. If you're inviting people to lunch, don't leave that one person out you think is a little odd. Bring them along. They might be really thrilled to be invited to lunch because no one ever asks them. Be kind, think about what you're about to say to someone before you say it and go, do they need to hear this right now? Is it going to be helpful to their journey? Or is there a way I can frame this to say, what are you struggling with and how can I be there for you versus I think you should do? That's what I'm learning from this experience, and I hope what people can take from any of what we did in the conference going forward. So may I turn that question around to you? I mean, you experienced it. It's hard for me. It was
Yeah.
like being in a wedding from hell. And by the way, half of it I hid up in my room in my underwear eating peanut butter sandwiches because I was so overwhelmed. You were there. You got to experience in a way I will never have gotten to. What do you take from it, and what are things that you hope to carry forward?
So I I've had a couple of conversations about this with a lot of my colleagues during the conference because I was asked to speak on the pre-con this year, which I was really thrilled and honored to have been asked. It was my
Thank you
first
for doing
panel.
that.
Yeah, no, thank you for inviting me. It was my
And you're
first.
you're you're also co-chair of our advocacy committee, so you're
Yes,
all over the place.
I'm
And on the
all,
Midwest board, you are everywhere,
I,
ubiquitous.
which is something that I would never have thought of myself. I'll be honest. Like me being everywhere is so anti who I am.
Yeah,
I'm
but
usually trying to be in the background.
I
So
I, I know this is going to sound self-aggrandizing. When Gina introduced you to me at that one Chicago, we were in Chicago
yeah.
for something. I don't know what we're doing, and I knew I was like, oh, she's special. So I'm glad to see you everywhere.
Oh,
No,
thank
but
you.
anyway, so you were, but you had some conversations with people.
A lot of them. I had left with so much more confidence than I went in with. Um, Not even just because I was on a panel, but I just felt like it was okay to be me during that time. I didn't have any questions. There was none of the microaggressions that I have to unfortunately deal in my day to day life when I'm back home sometimes. It was just okay. You do this. I got to see all the people that I get to collaborate with around the country that I normally get to collaborate with through LMA. So I was happy to see everyone, and it brought me a sense of joy. Like I was really, really ecstatic. I was really confident in myself. I was like, the way I walked felt different. The way I spoke felt different. Like the way I carried myself felt different over those a few days. And I was just like, man, like if I could take this back with me, um, some people may have an issue with it, but I don't care. And that's what I brought back with me. I'm like, well, you're gonna get what you
Thank you.
see is what you get at this point. We had a meeting about this earlier in the week with my team, and I'm just like, listen, I'm tired of hiding behind things. So this is what you see is what you get at this point. So here we are. I'm usually trying to be I I've done a lot of PR training. Like I have a master's in, integrated marketing communications. My undergrad degree has a concentration in PR. I've been doing journalism ever since I was like maybe 8 or 9 years old. So it's
You
something
got
that,
chops. You got chops.
so it's like you just develop this over time, and you try to be poised and you have a presence and you're kind of hiding behind a mask. And it gets to a point where you're like, why?
Yeah.
Why
Why?
am I not interesting as me being the whole?
Right.
Right.
Why am I putting my energy into that? And I've heard mostly people were thrilled that we had a theme because usually we have that reception the second night and people bounce in and out on their way to dinners and stuff. I'm like, oh, not this time. And I said, I want to have a theme and I want to have a costume theme. And people are like, what? I said, yeah, I want to have 80s night. Now the 80s were my era. You were
Mhm.
dressed up. I saw.
I
But
was.
I learned this trick when I was at Oakwood Healthcare. We had a board retreat every year, and I'm fessing up. This is not an original idea on my part. We had different themes when we had our board retreat. There was a costume party every time, and what I saw was a whole different side of people because
Mhm.
they were wearing different clothes. They were expressing something from the past. They were having fun. They let down their guard, and there was an authenticity in the interaction, and there wasn't, I've got to get to this vendor dinner now and go over here do this. It was just we were there and having fun. And I don't know if you know this, we because those the second night reception is so weird. It's like 5:30 to 7:30 and you're like, this is a
Yeah.
party in the middle of the day. Well, it was 8:15. I don't know if you were still around. The security had to kick me in. They were like, you don't have to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here. They were chasing us out, and I'm like, yay, mission accomplished. Because again, to your point, it's like just let people be. And I know people are like, well, we don't want this. It's a professional conference. We don't seem like we're having that much fun. Why not? Why
Hmm.
not? Because that's where connection happens and that's where great energy comes and that's where ideas happen. So, what makes me so gratified from what you offered, everything, but that you had that when you said, I walked a little different, that's what we wanted. And
Hmm.
that you went back to your team and you're like, now let me share this lesson with you. I think thank you for that.
No, thank you for putting it on. I mean, you and the ACAC did a great job because yeah, they probably think I'm a troublemaker now, but I've always been a troublemaker, so here we are.
Nothing
It's
wrong with it. What was it? Oh, Rob always used to quote this. Oh, it was I think he was a senator and he passed away and he was always like, make good trouble. I can't remember his name.
yes.
You know,
John Lewis.
John
Like
Lewis.
trouble.
My
Yep.
mom loved John Lewis and Rob used to quote that for about a year and a half. Make good trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Definitely make good
That's us.
trouble.
It's you and me. We're making good trouble.
Yes, yeah, we are. Oh man. So speaking of community, so since we're talking about community and the lessons that we brought home. And it's just a personal question. So here's all the fun stuff. Do you have a favorite memory of celebrating Pride Month with your family or friends or colleagues? And if so, what is it?
No, I'm gonna. Well, yes and no. I'm gonna divulge. I've never liked Pride Month. I don't. I'm always like, why is this?
Really?
No, in part because I grew up in an era where you weren't really sure you wanted everybody to know you were gay. We lived in Ferndale for a
Mm,
long time, which is kind of the gay mecca here in Detroit.
yeah.
And we always ate brunch at a place called Club Bart. They had mac and cheese omelets and mashed potato omelets. They were so good. And we'd go there every Saturday. And Pride Fest was usually in our little 9 mile stretch. And we'd walk through that to go to Pride or to brunch. And we'd come back and we would never partake in all that. We never dressed up. We never did things. We were just like, this feels so performative, quite honestly. I never quite got it, but I did love all the mix CDs I would pick up along the way because there were always these great dance mix CDs that were free. And I'm like, well, and so I'd grab, my husband's like, what are you taking? I'm like, it's free stuff. But I never really enjoyed Pride in the way I think should have. So I probably didn't have the appreciation for it. It's like when my husband and I got married, part of me was agnostic about, we've been together 20 some years. I felt like we got married when we had a mortgage. Why are we going through this exercise? But once I got married, I was like, this is special. This is symbolic. So I have come to appreciate Pride, even though I never really partook or enjoyed it. Now, that said, there were two performers that came through Ferndale Pride, and I did sit there in the front row, and I was so excited. And one was Jeff Timmons from 98 Degrees, and he did look a little like, how did I land here? And the other, I think, I think it was Shaka Khan. I saw her somewhere in Detroit, and I think it was at Pride, and I love Shaka Khan. So I was just, so there are memories because I do like the celebratory aspect. I do like that it brings people together. I appreciate the sense of community it brought, but I feel like I missed the boat. Like I never really partook in Pride during the era because I was always a little afraid that someone was going to come along and do something bad to us while we were all gathered together. I shouldn't admit that. But I'm glad it has become the celebration it has for people. The rainbow capitalism aside, I love that, my little hometown in Indiana has a Pride, like there are places that have Pride festivals now. I'm like, really? And I think that's why we're getting such ugliness because people feel these are the death knell of an old culture because people are like, this has changed around us. We can thank RuPaul for Drag Race being such a popular entity and for so many shows and others sort of normalizing, not that it needs to be normalized, it's not the right word, but introducing across the country that people in the LGBT community are just living their lives and we're fun and we want to have fun. And we're not always fun, but mostly we're fun. And so I think it's helped. I've seen a big transition in 20 years. There are things happening this year that scare me, but I'm hopeful that they are the last gasp of people going, boy, we fell asleep at the switch and we didn't know how to control this. TV and culture did socialize some good ideas. And now we have Pride festivals in little small towns around the country that I would have never imagined. They used to be in the big metropolitan areas. So I think it's a little bit of my own experience and where I was and my comfort with certain things. And I probably missed out on some really good times, but I have some great mix CDs and I
Yep.
saw Jeff Timmons and Shaka Khan. So
That's the trade-off. And
yeah.
I think people don't know, and I talk to people about this all the time. Detroit's literally the home of techno. Learned that when I was in
Yes.
music school. Like, I mean, that's why we have great mixtapes, like house
Yep.
techno. I used to love house music.
Kevin Saunderson, was it Kevin Saunderson that was a Detroit founder of techno? Because you had house music in Chicago that was like,
Mhm.
I can't remember the producer, and then techno was kind of emerging at the same time, and then they sort
Yeah.
of were. But I think Kevin Saunderson was the big, and I think he still lives here. And then I think the group Inner City, Good Life, I think they were from Detroit too. But yeah, the early days of techno, and yeah, we have the Movement Festival. I mean, sorry, I
Mhm.
interrupted you, but yes, I
Yeah.
just mansplained back to you what you were telling me,
No,
but I
I
got
mean, no,
excited.
it's totally fine. I mean, we have good music. So there's always a good mixtape in Detroit.
Yep. Yeah, you
For
might
the,
have to give somebody $5 for it, but
yes. And they might come up to you in a gas station, but it
yes,
will usually be a good
it
mixtape.
usually is very good. Just be open to it, and it'll be fine. Yeah, it happens to me when I'm walking from lunch. There's always a guy that's like, "Hey, you want my mixtape?" And I always buy them because I'm like, this could be good, this could not be good, but this is somebody who's
Mhm.
hustling and has a creative voice, and they want somebody to see them. And what does it hurt? I got $5. I'll buy your mixtape, sure.
Exactly. What is it? So another
Famous
fun.
last words.
What does it hurt? Next
What
thing you
happened to
know.
Roy? He went to buy a mixtape and he was never seen again.
Oh God, I hope not. I hope not. So
So why am I
another,
joking? I shouldn't be joking about these things, but you know what I mean. You're just like,
I know because I
sure.
mean I'm from there, so I know. Like, and I also have like a very dry, kind of somewhat cynical sense of humor. So,
Detroit, but wait, okay. For those who don't, Detroit is it is. I've lived here 23. It is an incredible. It is my home. It is an incredible community. It is so much creativity, so much good stuff, and downtown Detroit is so vibrant and so many cool things going on that
yeah,
it is a joy. So come visit us. We're good people.
yeah.
Buy a
So
mixtape.
yeah. Another fun question. So at one point, okay, so you thought you were going, I remember listening to this in an interview, you thought you were going to go into academia and you studied theater. I
Yeah,
think we all at one point think we're going into academia for some
yeah,
reason.
yeah. It
You
seems
studied,
safe. It's like I like college. I'll come live here.
yes, exactly. I'll come live here. And so you studied theater before going for your MBA. So I want to ask you, what was one of your favorite performances that you were part of? And how does
Oh,
that
sure.
performance impact your outlook on life?
Yeah, there have been a few. I was in Follies recently, the Sondheim show, and I really loved that. I was in Oklahoma a few years ago, and it was one of the few times I got to be kind of the sexy leading man. Although I played Curly, and I played him kind of like Forrest Gump, so I think people were like, "You're not that sexy, but you're funny." Um, but the my favorite theater experience, I did the show, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, which weirdly enough, the guy who wrote the Pina Colada, I think it's a Pina Colada song, he wrote the score for Edwin Drood, and it's very different. And it's one of the unfinished texts from Dickens. So the show has alternate endings and the like clue, and the audience votes on there's a murderer and who's the murderer, and there's songs that are different. So you had to learn multiple endings, and it was one of the best theater experiences of my life because it was I'd had a really bad experience right before, and it sort of saved me from that theater wise. And the director is a educational development professional, and he worked with us, and we rehearsed in a very different way, very complex score. I played Jasper, who is I've got multiple personalities. I'm addicted to opium, and I'm wacky, so it's right up my alley. And He worked with us differently. He started usually when you rehearse a show, you'll do 1 day choreo, 1 day music, 1 day book, and you never quite feel like you're. Well, he did it differently. He had us learn all the music for 2 or 3 weeks. And when we got that down, then we did the choreography for 2 or 3 weeks. And if you watch community theater, choreography is where most of us struggle. So it was good that and he knew that that's where the audience leans in when you're doing the musical number. And if it looks like, you know, elephants tromping around the stage, it's not going to be fun. So we got the choreography down, and it was at the very end. We were supposed to learn our lines off, do that separate, and then we've added the blocking in the book. And it was my performance. It was one of the few times I felt really good about what I did on stage. Like I won a Broadway World Award for it. I don't know. I think it was one of those popular vote things. So I take it with a grain of salt. But I just felt so empowered on stage, and like I really, after 20 years of doing this, I finally actually knew what I was doing to connect with the audience and build a character and be very different. My husband said, I didn't know you up there. I've never seen you do something like that on stage. And it felt so gratifying. And afterwards, I went to the director and I said, why was this so different? And he explained to me that he knows that the human mind needs to learn in these ways. I said, well, it's why everybody does it. It's why I don't know. And then he said this. He said, and the other thing is I cast for culture, not for talent. And I thought, well, thanks a lot. And then I realized what he said. He's like, I want to build a cast that's cohesive, not someone who's a showboater and going to try to steal all the lines and get all the laughs. The ensemble is that the audience experiences. You're not in competition with your fellow actors. You are there to deliver a coherent experience. And that transformed the way I think about so many different things. It's not about me being the star of something. It's about everybody on my team having their moments and feeling supported. And if I want to give a good performance, I need to spend the time with them so we have a authentic relationship that is visible in the work or visible on stage. So that show really cemented for me. And I'd always realized I work in 6-week increments. And I realized one day that why that is, we do rehearsals in 6 weeks and then we open the show. So I think theater has helped me be very organized and production oriented. And at the end of the day, we still have to deliver, even if there are some bumps along the way. So let's all stay focused on the prize and understand that even when we get in front of an audience, what we thought was going to work might not. So let's adjust the line, adjust the prop, adjust some of the scripting so the audience gets the best experience, and be willing to do that. I find a lot of marketers are very precious. I sometimes joke, people think people got into marketing for creativity. I think they got into it because they like to be control freaks. So there are a lot of marketers that are like, my brand is this and my font is this and we never change it. Oh, we don't do that. If we do that, we have to do that for everybody. And I'm like, what is this thinking? I hate that thinking. I hate, if I do this for one, I have to do this for all. I hate that expression probably more than any, because it's not true. Those are the very people who will cut a side deal the next day. And I'm like, get off it. So I find that theater has given me an agility and an ability to get to the end game while remaining flexible, and also kind of celebrating everybody who's part of the process. So,
Awesome. So I have one final question because I know we're
okay.
coming up on the hour. So if you had one piece of advice for younger LMA leaders, what would it be?
Don't be so hard on yourselves, and don't push so hard before you're ready to take whatever the next challenge is on. And I say that about myself. I look back on some of my work experiences where I was in the moment going, I need a better title. I need more money. I need more this. And I got where I wanted to get. So I guess I'm glad I had that ambition, but I missed out on some joy with the people I was with. You know, I had a wonderful team at Oakwood Healthcare, and it was four of us in strategic planning for about 4 years, and we did great work. And we had a consulting mindset, and we still had time at lunch to do crossword puzzles together and go out to lunch and have lives. And we
Yeah.
cared about each other. But in that moment, I still was like, I need to move up. I need to get my MBA. I need to be a director. I need to be a this. I need to be a that. And if there was, I'd love to go back and just visit some of that time with knowing what I know now and being really present in the moment with the people who matter.
Yeah.
The stuff will come. The opportunity will come. Laura Gassner Outing said on that show that you watched, she said, you don't have to give your trophies back. And I kind of thought, well, what the hell do you mean by that? And I get it. I thought about it for a minute. And it's when you have an accomplishment, just enjoy that. Don't worry about the next thing because you need to prove that you deserved whatever you'd already gotten. Enjoy where you are. So I know that's a kind of message that would have never resonated with me when I was younger,
Hmm.
but I now know why people tell you that. It goes fast. You know, I'm 50. Everyone's like, oh, you're still young. And I'm like, yeah, but I feel like I was 27 10 minutes ago. And I still have clothing that from that year, you know, that I can't wear anymore. So it goes fast. And if you're so obsessed with the next thing and your next accomplishment and you're using people as pawn pieces to get there, that's not a happy life. You know,
Yeah.
be real with people, be yourself. What you said, Ashley, let your truest self shine through. And if you're in the wrong place for that true self to be valued, get the hell out of there. You know, there's another place that will appreciate you. And don't worry about the title and the pay and all that. That will come if you live in your authenticity. So, oh, and the other thing I would say to myself as a don't worry about. I joke about my weight and stuff. I used to be so obsessed. Why am I not skinny? Why am I not this? Why don't I? I used to be very skinny, and I wish I had muscles. And then I got heavy, and I'm like, I wish I could be skinny again. Just be happy in the body you have. You know, take care of yourself, rest, eat reasonably, but don't beat yourself up that you're not. You know, that I'm not Hugh Jackman or Chris Hemsworth. You know, just be.
Yeah. I Yes, that's true. I have my workout stuff here in the back, which
Yeah,
I think
you're inspiring me because at least yours is close to you. Mine is in another room that I visit every 3 weeks.
I've
I
been
did
having.
exercise last night. It helps me. I've been watching Ant-Man Quantumania, which is terrible, by the way. But I
Okay.
get a movie on and I'm like, I'm going to half hour, half hour, half hour. And it's like reading a book. And I'm like, because there's a lot of movies. I have thousands of movies here I bought that I've never watched because I'm that person. And I'm like, Roy, this will be your reward. Go and walk on the treadmill and watch a
Mhm.
half hour. And when it's a good movie, it keeps me going. I finished Ant-Man last night. It is not good. But, oh, speaking of movies, have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 yet?
Not yet. I saw your review go up though, and I was going to read through it.
Oh, you're an animal person, though, aren't you?
I am.
You will love it and you will hate it. And you will go, this, I can't believe they got this through Disney because it is. Did you ever watch Watership Down when you were a kid?
No.
About the rabbits that attack each other because it's an allegory. I won't go into it. This is that times 10 because they go into Rocket Raccoon's backstory. And I'm going to make a point with this. And he is very, as a baby, he's very open and accepting to these experiments that are happening on him. And he's becoming this creature. And there are other animals that become his friends because they're there together and they have nobody else. And it's the most loving dynamic. Well,
Mm.
things go awry at a certain point, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. But boy, it drove a message home about Be kind. Be kind to everybody, all animals. Show love.
Hmm.
Don't have a plan that takes life for granted. And I was crying repeatedly during this thing. I'm like, am I that on thin ice at this point that I cried during Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? But it was a very moving experience. So you got to watch it, and then we'll have to talk about it.
Yes, yeah, I do have to watch it. I have a lot of movies to catch up on. I need to go see The Little Mermaid.
Oh, I want
I've
to see
heard
that too.
I really want to see it. I love Halle Bailey's voice. That's
Oh,
just like listening to her
she's
sing.
exquisite. Oh, she's so good. And Melissa McCarthy as Ursula, and Javier Bardem, who is,
Mhm.
oh, it's such a cast. But yeah, her voice is shit, and what she can do. There are certain actors right now. Zendaya is another one where, if I'm, is it Zendaya or Zendaya? I never know how to say her name. She
Mhm.
also can do everything under the sun, and I'm like,
Yeah.
ha,
Like
and
how?
I know, and they seem like really good people too. On top of it, I'm jealous. Makes me angry. No, it doesn't. I'm glad that they are in this world, and that they are featured, and they are performing, and they're setting a great example, because it's another great place where, I see these posts of little girls that are like, I see myself on screen, and I'm like, yeah, that's what we all want. So we'll both go see Little Mermaid this weekend, and then
Yes.
we'll live chat while we're watching it.
Yes, yes. I'm gonna text my friend, see what he's doing this weekend, and be like, "Hey, let's go see Little Mermaid."
I want to be where the people are. I want to see them dancing. Yeah, it's
uh,
great. It's a great score too.
it's
Anything else? Did we pretty much covered everything at this point? Is
we
we at
pretty
the three
much
hour mark yet?
no, we made it to like what, an hour eight. So thank
Not
you.
bad.
I know we got a lot of content in for an hour. So thank you, Roy. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your story to the LMA Midwest community. And I know this will go on, most likely go up on LinkedIn. So everybody, LMA International, will see this. But thank you for joining us here in the
Thanks for
Midwest. And
having me.
yeah, this has been a really
Thanks to
great
our
conversation.
family members, and thanks to our family members who made it to the end of this particular episode.
I hope they do.
Thank you. You're wonderful, Ashley, and I'm grateful for your leadership and who you are in our community. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Roy. I really appreciate that. I'm happy to be here with you. So, and thanks to Rob for
Thank you, Rob.
helping us through our madness through this interview today. So, big ups to
All
Rob.
right. See you on the flip side, everybody.